started our journey at 3 in the afternoon, one of the hottest times of the day. We are in the midst of August and we are determined to find our spot in the desert.
I am very excited today. We have an amazing show for you. We're going to show you more about the desert habitat. Now, we've probably forgotten about this kind of environment, although we live in Kuwait and it is a desert environment. But we live in concrete houses that have ACs even in the winter, and we forgot about this kind of natural habitat and how the life form that is inside of it. A lot of us probably think that the desert is dead and most of it has very little life. But on the contrary, it is actually the opposite. Today, I'm going to talk with Dr. Ali Khuraibet. He actually is specialized, he's got his PhD in environmental impact, so he is the perfect person to talk about the desert in Kuwait. We're going to talk to him about the good things that are happening in the desert, and also the kind of things that are happening that are being disadvantages, the leftovers that are in the desert, the bad things that we're doing to the desert, and how it affects our lives in the future. I really hope you stay with us. See you as we progress.
After getting lost for about an hour, we were all behind schedule. However, when we reached our designated spot, a sense of energy had come upon us. Being surrounded by a bit of nature, it made us determined and happy to continue.
We've been living in a desert environment all our lives, but there's little we know actually about the desert environment. Perhaps it's because we've gotten used to living in homes that have air conditionings, and so we don't feel the real environment of the desert. Today, I thought I'd like to know about the hidden things about the deserts, the different kinds of deserts that we have. All these interesting things that we probably forgot or we don't know much about. So I'm sure you know a lot about the deserts. Tell me first about what kind of desert are we standing on right now, and what are the different kinds?
Let me define ecosystem first, because deserts are like a type of ecosystems. And the definition of ecosystem, it is that a system that contains biotic, living, and also abiotic components, non-living components. And there should be some kind of interaction between these two components, the biotic and abiotic components, in order to call that particular system an ecosystem. Now, the type of the desert in Kuwait is a harsh desert environment. It's not a cold one, because desert can be divided or can be classified into two types: hot deserts and cold deserts. The difference between them is the temperature. The cold ones, it's all the time they are cold, and the desert environment, they can be cold sometimes, but during the day it is very hot. As you can see from the temperature now, it is almost baking. So if you put anything like an egg, it will bake by itself.
A desert is defined as a region that receives very little rainfall. It can be hot or cold. There are various types of deserts all around the world, from the harsh elements of the Sahara Desert in Africa to the 4 deserts of the southwestern of North America. Areas in Antarctica are examples of cold deserts.
If we see just the things around us, trees and the desert organisms, you will see that they are very well adapted to this harsh, hot weather climate. And it's very important to understand how these organisms evolved, and also how they have this capability to adapt themselves. For example, this salix tree just behind us, it has different types of adaptation. For example, it has spikes, and the spikes can form or can be a type of water conservation and also protection. It protects the plant from being eaten by other organisms. So there's a lot of type of adaptations for plant and also the animals, the organisms.
If you don't mind me saying, because for a very a person who doesn't know much, for example, like a friend of mine or myself, we'll be like walking the desert or driving. We see very little life, so we naturally feel like, oh, we can do whatever we want, perhaps a camp, put the car, put things down, and we forget, like you said, there's a lot of organisms that are adapting to this desert, but they're hidden. The reason why they're adapting is because they're hidden and we don't see them. So I don't know if you have anything to say about these people that probably do not know much about the desert and are kind of disrupting the ecosystem of it.
Yes, yeah. Well, again, one of the characteristics of deserts, for example, the hot desert ones, is that the rainfall annually is about or less than 25 centimeter per year. And although we can see the desert, there's nothing in it, but in fact there is different types of desert plants, flora and fauna that inhabit these areas. But they are not dominant, they are not abundant because of the harsh weather climate. Usually, plants or animals, they thrive if the weather and the climate is really very good. There's plenty of water, there is food, plenty of food around them. But in a desert environment, there's scarce resources, very less water, very less the weather, the parameters does not support them to live in abundance in such ecosystem.
Which I read some online about what's called the succession, the desert ecosystem succession, which the reason why, like you said, flora and fauna they're not thriving is because there isn't a start, which is, let's say, water and then these small grasses and temperature.
Yes.
So there isn't much succession. Am I right?
Yes, yeah.
Saying?
As I said, the whole life depends on water, and water is very scarce resources in this area, in the desert area. So they have to adapt. Otherwise, if they don't adapt, they cannot survive. And as Darwin said, survival is for the fittest, not for the strongest. So they have to fit themselves. They have to evolve, to adapt in order to live in this very harsh and very hot ecosystem.
The low humidity and lack of cloud cover allows most of the day's heat to radiate back into space, even from rocks that are scorching hot in the daytime sun. The dry air is not a good storage medium for heat compared to humid air or large bodies of water.
Dr. Ali, we saw an example just earlier of how, it was surprising for me how a piece of wood that's just lying on the floor, and we're thinking it's just trash, but there was an adaptation there, where there was a life going on there. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. In order, as I said, in order for these organisms to survive, they have to adapt, and to help themselves from the intensity of heat, they look for shade. So usually the activity, most of the desert fauna, they prefer to have their activities mainly at night, whereas the temperature is cold. During the day, they prefer to settle, to be dormant, and to look for shady areas. So that ant colony, as we have seen, it's shaded with a wooden board in order to have the moisture and also the shade, so to protect the colony from the intensity of heat. This is one type of adaptation. The other one is that they live in burrows. So if you see a lot of arrows in the desert, means that there's a lot of organisms living just beneath the soil, and the soil beneath them is moist. So if there is moist and there is some kind of an air current moving down, it can cool the burrow so they can survive.
It's always moist even when you lift it, you can
feel the moisture in the soil.
Although it's in the mid of summer.
Exactly. So these are an adaptation technique they use in order to survive in this very harsh environment and ecosystem.
Dr. Ali, we come to a very perhaps controversial issue. Leftovers of the humans that come here and probably just picnic or camp or whatever it is. You just said this piece of log looked very much like a person, a human being came in through it on the ground. And I've always thought to myself, this is the worst thing you can do to any kind of ecosystem, any kind of environment. But right now you're telling me that basically because of this wood, piece of wood, there's life going on in that.
Exactly.
So are these leftovers that we are throwing in the middle of the desert, are they, it seems like they have some kind of advantage, am I wrong?
Well, I would say that their disadvantages are more than their advantages. If we see just behind this salix tree, you will see that there's a lot of garbage, waste being dumped after the camping activities. In Kuwait we have a season for camping, and we regret that people who camp, they don't follow just basics environmental protection measures. they bring all their households to the desert. They are moving from modern houses to desert to have this peace of mind. But what is the benefit of this peace of mind if you're bringing all your households appliances to the desert? You bring your fridge, your TV, your CDs, everything, bring them to the desert area. So there is no proper movement if they want this peace of mind.
Yeah, you're just picking up your environment, your modern life,
exactly, and transport it into the desert area.
And bring it here,
exactly.
You're causing more trouble, and you haven't learned anything about
protection.
About protection, also the reason why I believe our
tranquility and peace of mind.
Exactly, like our grandfathers and great grandfathers, we used to come during the spring to enjoy the spring of the desert.
Yes, the blooming. Yeah.
But like you said, we go inside tents that are supposed to be just for camping, and we see a full bathroom, full toilet, concrete, plastic, ceramic, you name it. It's all in the middle of the desert.
Yes. This is really a problem because we have also done documentaries for Kuwait TV after camping, the camping season, and we saw a lot of debris, from this camping and the camping activities. A lot of charcoal, a lot of furniture being just thrown, a lot of electrical appliances, rooted plants, sewage discharges. So all these things are really disadvantages to the desert environment and ecosystem of Kuwait. This needs to be regulated. There is some kind of now legislation to be released and some kind of controlling to manage the camping season.
What do you think of that?
Well, it's a good thing to do, but still it won't work. I think the best thing to do is that there should be established an ecosystem sector in Kuwait for ecotourism, in which in ecotourism there will be a proper management of desert resources, and these resources to be managed in a proper way, in a sound and sustainable way, so they will not be wasted. So by establishing this ecosystem sector, we can do eco-camping, in which we allocate a lot of areas, designate different areas, north, south, or west of Kuwait, and we fence them, and we provide everything for the people to come and camp. So they don't bring tents. There will be tents there. There will be solar systems. There will be natural things. There will be no cars. So it will be things that really help the desert environment from being degraded.
Yeah, not we hit the point of the main point why we go to these places, is to actually see these kind of organisms and life forms, so we can understand, because we live in a very much 100% because of our environment, a city life where we're protected by concrete and air conditioning. We don't know the environment, how it's like. So, like you said, when we have these kind of camps that are already set, it'll teach us something about life.
Yeah, I think I lived in Old Kuwait, in the old city, in the late 50s. And also I saw the modernization, and I think with modernization we are being left behind with no tranquility. So we need to move to areas where there is tranquility, and there is you will sit for a few days with having a peace of mind. But what's happening in Kuwait is in contrary. It's not like this. And as I said, this sector needs to be reorganized and need to be improved in a sustainable way, so people who come to the desert, they don't destroy it. They come and enjoy it, and they enjoy and to see all the plants and the fauna of the organism, how they adapted, how they lived, and also how their ancestors, because all our ancestors before moving to the cities were in the desert area. So it's good also to see how they were living at that time with no electricity, with all these electrical appliances. So it's good to move from this modernization to this old age and to see how the people they lived. And we cannot do this if we bring all our appliances from our homes and just we put them and install them in the desert.
True. I even heard that Kuwait City itself, like the bay, was the homes that were there. It was pretty much like living in in a natural environment, because even the homes are made of mud, and they were
Mud,
designed in a
rocks,
way
yes.
to create wind channels
Currents
and
inside,
currents,
so you will have, yeah.
so that you don't have to have you don't use like
yes.
what's that name of the gas? It's kind of like really bad. The ones that they
Yes.
put for the AC.
Yes, yeah, the one that deplete the ozone layer,
Yeah. So like, I think you're absolutely right. My next question to you, Dr. Ali, is you spoke about these camps that we can set up and do them very nicely, and no one brings their stuff; they just come and enjoy it.
Yes.
Would you say that would also be a move to desert restoration?
Yeah, this will really rehabilitate naturally the environment, because if you go to camping areas, you will see it is really deteriorating, and there's a lot of waste on them, pollution on them. So by doing this, we give time to the impacted areas to rehabilitate itself naturally.
Okay.
So it's a good thing to do if they do this,
So it's two birds in one stone.
Exactly, yes.
Dr. Ali, will you show us some examples of
Yes,
the
for sure.
left, or whatever you want to show?
Yes.
What I really want to know is how are the leftovers of the camping, since it's a
Yes.
hot topic and there
Yes.
are some type of regulations,
Yes.
I heard. I want to know the extent of damage to the environment that
For
these
sure.
leftovers are
We
doing.
will do two things. We'll show how these animals and plants are adapted to the harsh weather and climate of the desert, and also we will see some of the leftovers of the previous camping season.
The Gobi Desert, located in the northern part of Asia, is a cold desert with frost and occasionally snow occurring on its dunes. Besides being quite far north, it is also located on a plateau roughly 1,500 meters above sea level, which contributes to its low temperatures. The climate of the Gobi is one of the greatest extremes. Combined with rapid changes of temperatures of as much as 35 Celsius, these can occur not only seasonally, but within only 24 hours. An average of approximately 194 millimeters of rain falls annually in the Gobi. Additional moisture reaches parts of the Gobi in winter as snow is blown by the wind from the Siberian steppes. These winds cause the Gobi to reach extreme of temperatures ranging from -40 Celsius in winter to a very hot 50 Celsius in summer, similar to the temperatures we see in Kuwait.
I'm basically taking my tea break. The crew is also taking their tea break. We spoke with Dr. Ali about the different kind of deserts and the ecosystem in general. We also spoke to him about the different kinds of flora, which are the plants, and why some of them have thorns, and why some of them have actually wax. So stay with us, and he's going to show us a bit more about the plants. When I first saw this tree, I thought it was actually indigenous, because we're kind of in the middle of the desert, and I thought it was native, but you're saying otherwise.
I don't think these trees are native. Maybe they are like old trees in Kuwait, but maybe they were planted or moved with the pollens and they just rooted themselves. But I would like to speak about the adaptation, as we have been speaking previously, that the salix tree,
Okay.
they adapted itself to the desert environment, and you can see that it has a lot of spikes in it.
Okay.
And one of the advantages of having a spike or a thorn is that it can hold water, and also it can give shade, and also it can protect the plant from being eaten by other desert organisms
Okay.
or fauna. So this is some kind of adaptation you can see. And also there's different adaptation in some of the plants in which the roots or other parts of the tree are covered by a material like a wax.
Okay.
And this wax prevents the water from getting out of the plant itself.
That's what we see in aloe vera.
Yes. Okay.
Doctor, so you're saying that this tree is not indigenous, meaning this species, wherever it comes from originally, does not have thorns?
No, they have thorns because these are adapted to the desert environment.
My question is, when they come to a new environment, let's say the desert, will they change in shape to adapt? Is that a flora?
See, these are desert plants. Otherwise, they will not survive. You cannot bring a tree from Europe and plant it in a desert environment.
And then, okay.
But we say, is it for example, a native all the time was in Kuwait, or it was like in another country nearby,
Nearby, but
Iraq,
also
Saudi
deserts.
Arabia, Syria, desert ones, and they
I
moved
see what
here.
you're saying now. So
Yes.
it was always a desert, but just
Yes.
from a different desert.
It
Okay,
could
I
be,
get it.
yeah. Because Poland's, they move with the wind.
Okay.
So they can plant themselves anywhere they can settle, and if there is like good environment, they can just thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other type of adaptation we can see is the burrows. You can see there is a burrow,
Borrow
here.
here.
Yeah. And with regret, this burrow is also covered with some of the plastic debris, if you can see, from the previous camping activity. Okay. So burrows are very good adaptation technique in which desert fauna, they burrow themselves beneath the soil in which
Okay.
there is moisture, and if there is any kind of current, it gives a cooling effect.
I
So it is really a very good place for the desert fauna to be there, also for protection. So both it is a protection and also to have this,
Dr.
yes.
Dr. Ali, what kind of animal is living in there? Is this an animal, insects?
Yeah, it could be a lizard. It could be a lizard or a rodent.
Because I don't know if the camera can catch it, but I also
Yeah.
see ants.
Ants, it is in this direction here, but this one here, it is either a lizard or one of the small desert rodents.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was another example. This is my favorite and most interesting one, where I thought humans just came and dropped their waste, and then all of a sudden there's life form underneath this. So
Yeah, see, this is another survival and adaptation technique. You can see that there is a lot of burrows,
okay,
and you can see there is an ant colony here. So this cardboard, which is a waste
okay.
from previous camping activity, is being used by desert fauna to protect themselves from the intensity of heat, and also as a source for protection.
Dr. Ali, what if this was plastic, like a non-organic material? Would the organisms also be able to adapt on it?
I mean, they can use it as a shade, but you see they are degrading. So these are from the UV light and intensity of heat, they degrade, and they become like a litter all over the desert. So it's not advised to use plastic or bring plastic material, as you can see here also.
So
it's not good to use them or bring them with the camping activities.
There's no advantage
You want to
for it.
bring them, you have to wrap them, put them in containers to be collected, but not to be thrown. As you can see, there's a lot of waste here, just dumped from the previous camping season.
Dr. Anwar, I also heard, I don't know if you've heard this as well, that there's a legislation or a law that might ban plastic altogether from Kuwait. What do you think of that? I mean,
I think we cannot ban everything. We cannot ban,
I was thinking the same
everything,
thing, just because we're misusing it.
Otherwise, we have to ban cars, we have to ban
True.
airplanes, we have to ban commercial activities.
True.
There is something called sustainability. In sustainability, we have to move in parallel ways, letting the commercial and economic sector work, and at the same time, let's protect the environment.
Okay.
So we need to move, in fact, in a parallel directions. And we need to manage the plastic. There is a lot of plastic now which is biodegradable. So even if it is left over in the desert or landfills, it can biodegrade naturally.
I see.
So it is advised
I
that
see.
we bring some materials or plastic from that type.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's a
Biodegradable.
It's a petroleum agent that is also biodegradable.
It is biodegradable. So once you leave it in the environment, it naturally biodegrades.
But it is plastic made from petroleum
yes,
agent.
Yes, yeah.
That's very interesting to know.
Yeah.
Desert animals have evolved to handle the desert's heat and lack of water. They have adapted their bodies and behavior to the desert's climate. Most can survive on small amounts of water, and many get all of their water from their food. Some drink maybe once a week and travel considerable distances to find isolated water holes and springs. Large animals seek shade during the hottest part of the day. Some animals dig a hole depression into the ground and lie in the cooler soil, while others are nocturnal, sleeping during the hot day and only coming out at night to eat and hunt. Many reptiles and other animals protect themselves from the extreme temperatures by spending their time in burrows.
The scene that you see behind me is breathtaking. I'm sure you agree with me on that. It's in the middle of the desert. We're in the middle of August. I'm wearing a full shirt and I'm pretty comfortable. It's not hot at all. I'm enjoying myself. The reason why I'm mentioning the scene and the breathtaking scene that is behind me, and actually I didn't expect to see something like that in the middle of the city, but it does exist, and the reason why I'm mentioning it is for you to see it and for me to tell you that the next part of our episode, of our adventure, is going to be actually the heartbreaking part. It's what humans are doing to this habitat and what they're doing to actually kill the leftover habitat that we have. I'm not going to call them the enemy of the ecosystem, but in a way I cannot see this lightly at all. I hope this is going to touch a place in your heart for it, and I hope you're going to do something about it, as we are, the whole crew is trying to do something about it. So stay tuned to see this part of our adventure. Dr. Ali, this would have to be the funniest thing that we've seen so far. I don't know if you agree with me. A couch in the middle of the desert.
In fact, two couches.
Two couches again,
Yes.
you know. The trees may be native, but there's a plastic or whatever kind of couch that's man-made, and it's in the middle of this kind of ecosystem desert. What do you call that?
Well, as I said previously, that this waste is from the previous camping season, and you can see worse than this waste. Sometimes you can see open septic tanks or sewage without septic tanks. So as I said, this sector, the tourism sector in Kuwait, the one especially related to desert camping, need to be regulated.
Sure.
And I think with eco camping, it will be a very good idea to be adopted.
Okay, Dr. Ali, tell me. I mean, I don't want to get into the, because we don't want to like upset ourselves, because we're in the middle of a natural habitat, and we want to feel nice about our outing, me and you. But let's talk about the bad things that this couch in the middle of a desert is doing, or this bunch of plastic that's there. How these people that contributed in placing these here, how are they killing the organisms in the desert?
See, there is one aspect related to ethics. Ethics mean good conduct.
Okay.
And I feel that the people coming to the desert area need to have this ethics in protecting this natural resources and also everything related to the desert ecosystem. So they shouldn't keep these wastes and all these type of waste in the desert area. They at least, after finishing their camping season, they should take all these back. If they don't want it, they should give it to recycling companies, or let any company who deal with waste to take it, or put them nearby Kuwait municipality waste containers.
Dr. Ali, let me ask you about your opinion. You said ethics. In your opinion, how can we grow ethics of being environmentally aware for people that perhaps are not educated enough?
Well, see,
what's your opinion?
Ethics come from our beliefs, and we are Muslims. So in Islam, we need to have all these good things, or our action need to be good. We shouldn't do evil things or bad things. So we should do only...
Shouldn't do evil things towards each other and the environment.
And the environment, because we should also protect the natural resources. And what's happening is that I wish that through the education system, people aware themselves, and also the government and the teachers aware also the pupils and the students about the importance that all religions, including our religion Islam, state that we should protect humans and also all living organisms and all natural resources. So it's not only about ourselves, but it's also about the resources that we have in the ecosystem that makes us living. Without these resources, we cannot live, in fact.
I was just going to tell you, we go back to succession. The little plant that's planted there that we think is not important, that's going to bring insects. Insects are going to bring birds. Birds is going to bring food for humans and sustainability.
Exactly.
And it's actually coming back to us.
Exactly. It is like a cycle.
Yes.
So life is a cycle. So we have to understand all the phases of this cycle, and we are part of this cycle. But the problem is that we think as humans that we are dominant, and all these resources that can be found on the earth are it is owned by us, and we have the right to destroy them, or
for our comfort.
Yeah, for in a wrong way.
Yeah.
Maybe we can use it in a comfort in a good way, but we are using it in a very bad way.
I keep seeing this couch, and I'm thinking
Yes.
a person was probably very comfortable sitting on this couch in some part of the
Camping
winter
season, yes.
camping season, And now he is creating the most, disadvantage
A
for
waste problem, in fact.
a waste
Yes,
problem. I'm sure
yeah.
if we pick this, there isn't a lot of life because
Yes.
I think this is polyester. So,
Yes.
like you said, it's not organic material.
Yes. So I think the important thing, the conclusion is that the government, through government agencies and ministries and authorities, they need to establish this sector, ecotourism sector for whole of the state of Kuwait, in which we should designate areas for eco-camping.
Dr. Ali,
Yes.
you've been so helpful.
Thank you very much.
I enjoyed
You're welcome.
myself. All the information you gave me is really, really valuable to me.
Thank you.
I hope everyone probably got one or two things from it, or let's say we planted a little bit of ethics in those who probably
Hopefully.
don't know about this issue yet. So I thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So let's take a walk back and
Yes,
see
for
what
sure.
we can find our way.
Yes.
In today's adventure, I personally had a lot of fun, especially with Dr. Ali giving us all the information. But what the most thing that struck my mind really is how the temperature is completely on the contrary of what I thought. It is actually, I'm not sure what the temperature is right now, maybe perhaps in the 30s or the 20s, but it's a lot lower than the city, and we're in the middle of August, middle of summer. Knowing that we are in a desert habitat, you would think that the desert is actually, the temperature is higher, but it is actually a lot lower. The reason why I'm saying this is give the natural habitat a chance. Come over here yourself, take a look, get to know the desert, get to know the plants in the desert and the kind of things that live here, the small things like we showed you. Perhaps you will learn more about how to take care of it, because like we said, the continuation of the ecosystem is very important. To keep these kind of small plants going is to keep our life going. So I hope you learned one or two things. I'm really, really glad you stayed with us for this episode. I'm gonna see you next week with an even more exciting adventure. So see you next time.
Planet, the love of nature.